Yes, welcome once again, everyone. Cannabis News with Joe Klare, July 30th, 2018. The start of another week here on Cannabis News, presented as always by the Marijuana Times. Check us out on marijuanatimes.org. Click that video tab at marijuanatimes.org to find this show. You can also check out all the great articles, our social media networks, all of that and more. marijuanatimes.org. Today, talk about a study about marijuana and teen use. Also, maybe not such an odd story, but just a story to get you PO'd to begin the week. That's what you need. Something to make you mad to begin the week. We'll talk about that story and also the crazy guy in the Philippines, Duarte. I guess that's how you pronounce his name. Famous. If you're new to the show, I'm famous for butchering names. The crazy drug war guy in the Philippines. You know who I'm talking about. This is a news program. He's the crazy guy in the Philippines with the drug war and the killing of the people and all that. You know about all that. We'll talk about it coming up here on Cannabis News. But first, of course, I'll tell you, Cannabis News brought to you by Nature's Side, nature-side.com. Side is spelled CIDE. Check out their line of organic, all-natural pesticides. We grow safe and poison-free. Don't use harmful chemicals on your cultivation. You'll be regulatory compliant in the state that you're growing in as well. You can do all of that with Nature's Side, nature-side.com, a proud sponsor of Cannabis News. Like I said, Side is spelled CIDE. CIDE, go check them out. They're awesome. This first story is from Jason Sander, the marijuanatimes.org. Recent study shows no link between cannabis decriminalization and increased youth consumption. Of course, we've all heard the stories about, legalization is going to lead to increased youth and teen use of marijuana. It'll be easy for them to get, etc. A recent study conducted by a nationwide team of researchers led by Washington University does its part to help debunk this age-old prohibitionist rhetoric with the evidence to back it all up. The study indicated that there was a considerable reduction in arrests involving minor cannabis offenses, which is, obvious when it comes to legalization and decriminalization of cannabis. Might raise a few eyebrows at the fact that the researchers found, quote, no increase in cannabis use among youths in the states that were looked into. The study said, quote, our results provide additional evidence that decriminalization can be accomplished without an increase in youth drug use. These findings are consistent with the interpretation that decriminalization policies likely succeed with respect to their intended effects, and that their short-term unintended consequences are minimal. This correlates with a bunch of other studies, teen use statistics out of places like Colorado. Colorado's had legal sales for several years now, and teen use continues to drop or remain steady there. Same thing in places like Washington and Oregon. So just more evidence that proponents of legalization, before all this started, back in, say just 2012, when it comes to recreational legalization, we were right about what was going to happen. There's no reason for teen use to go up. In fact, it'll be harder for them to get because drug dealers don't check ID. Licensed dispensaries and pot shops and retailers, and whatever you want to call them, they do check ID. So it makes it harder for teens who are under the age of 21, in most states is what the age is and is going to be. It's harder for them to get cannabis. So use was not going to go up. Plus, the whole marijuana is cool thing because it's illegal is going away too. It's becoming like everything else. You look at studies and research and surveys and polls, younger people are just not that impressed about, the quote-unquote danger of marijuana or, its counterculture vibe or whatever. And that's a symptom of becoming mainstream. And the more mainstream cannabis becomes, the less counterculture alt it will seem in the eyes of teenagers who will want to rebel in other ways. Smoking a joint at 16 is not what it used to be as far as rebellion in a lot of households, and teens know that. They're not dumb. They talk to each other. They have the social medias, and they have the Facebooks and the Twitters and such. They have that newfangled technology. This next story is from Reason.com. You check out the whole story. All the stories I talk about are linked in the description of this video. A Michigan man files suit after waiting 3 years for a hearing to get his seized car back. Stephen Nichols was supposed to get a prompt court hearing to challenge the forfeiture of his car, which police in the town of Lincoln Park in Michigan seized in 2015. because he was driving it without valid insurance. It's been 3 years since then, and Nichols still hasn't had his day in court. Last month, Nichols and two other plaintiffs filed a federal class action lawsuit, first reported by the Detroit News, alleging that Wayne County police and prosecutors seized residents' property and forced them to wait months, sometimes years, for a hearing. The suit argues that the delays violate the 14th Amendment right to due process. In addition, Wayne County prosecutors offered to settle cases out of court for $900, leaving owners to choose between getting their vehicle back quickly, even if they believe they were innocent, or shelling out even more money for a lawyer and waiting months to get their means of transportation back. So in other words, they make them pay $900, and they make the $900 seem like the obvious best choice of the limited choices that they have. There's two other plaintiffs in the lawsuit, Adam and Ryan Chappelle, who are a father and son. According to the suit, the younger Chappelle was borrowing his dad's car one day in July 2016 when sheriff's deputies saw him pull into a medical marijuana dispensary in Detroit. They pulled him over as he left and seized the car. Chappelle's car was one of hundreds impounded by the Wayne County Sheriff's Office for visiting a medical marijuana dispensary. Now get this. The Wayne County Sheriff's Office reported in 2016 that it surveilled 32 medical marijuana dispensaries, performed 634 investigatory stops of cars leaving the dispensaries, and they impounded, of those, 467 vehicles. Off the top of my head, I don't know what that percentage is, but 467 out of 634, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. We're talking like 3/4, basically. It's part of Operation Push Off, a local law enforcement initiative targeting drugs, prostitution, and drag racing, funded by licensing fees collected from the state's medical marijuana program. So the medical marijuana program was paying for these cops to pull over these people and take their cars. According to state reports, Wayne County law enforcement received $473,000 in medical marijuana operation and oversight grants in the fiscal year of 2016, and that went up to $483,000 in 2017. So basically, they lay in wait outside of a medical marijuana dispensary. They pull you over for whatever. They find something wrong. They impound your car. You know, it's like, I guess if it's having weed, they impound your car. They keep it unless you want to pay them $900 up front and get it back, and run you through the legal system to get your car back. All because you visited a medical marijuana dispensary. Like I say, you see, it's a long story over at Reason. You can find the link in the description of this video. Just crazy. This kind of stuff that Prohibition spawns. Prohibition spawned so many horrible practices and side effects and direct effects and auxiliary effects, and it just and snowballed and grew exponentially in some areas. It's created so much havoc and wreaked so much havoc, especially in places like the inner city in this country, that it's almost difficult to describe. And I try to describe it for a living, and sometimes I just can't. Like right now. You heard what I just said. Think what you will about police laying out, wait outside of medical marijuana dispensaries to try to steal people's cars. Crazy. Crazy stuff. This last story is from Reuters News Service. Philippines Duterte to keep up relentless and chilling drug war. Well, that does not sound ominous at all. Reuters out of Manila, Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte vowed on Monday to sustain momentum. This was a couple weeks ago, by the way, I think. His bloody war on drugs. Actually, it was, we don't have a date up here. Okay. Telling the nation in an annual address that the fight would be as, quote, relentless and chilling as during his first 2 years in power. Told a joint session of Congress, the anti-narcotics campaign, which has killed thousands of people and attracted international condemnation, was, quote, far from over. And he took a swipe at activists demanding that it be stopped. The illegal drugs war will not be sidelined. Instead, it will be as relentless and chilling, if you will, as on the day it began, said Duterte, whose crackdown is now the subject of a preliminary examination by prosecutors of the International Criminal Court. Your concern is human rights, mine is human lives, he said, adding that crackdown aimed to stop drugs destroying. That the crackdown was aimed to stop drugs destroying families. So he's protecting human lives by killing thousands of people with no due process at all. Many vigilante killings. The police have killed just thousands of people, and he's saving lives by killing a bunch of those people. And by killing those people, he's stopping drug use somehow, I guess. Since Duterte's war began, police have killed more than 4,500 people That's almost 1,500 more people than died on 9/11. 4,500 people they say were suspected drug pushers who resisted arrest. Well, yes, of course they did. Of course, why wouldn't they? They know they're going to die if they resist arrest, so that's the first thing that's going to come to their mind, is to resist. Human rights groups are alarmed by the bloodshed and say thousands have been similarly executed in what amounts to a synthetic. Let me try this again. Thousands have been summarily executed in what amounts to systematic extermination of drug users in the poorest communities. Police vigorously reject that, of course. Hey, they were all resisting arrest. All 4,500 of them were resisting arrest. And like I said, doesn't count the vigilante killings that police have turned a blind eye to, because Duarte's out there saying, hey, if you think somebody's a drug pusher, don't wait for the cops, man. Just go kill him. Just get at it. Because that's a recipe for a safe and wholesome and inclusive country and nation, and just everybody feels safe and fine and calm, and it's all good. Now everybody's not fearing for their lives because they might be suspected or fingered by the person down the street who's a weed whacker they didn't return. The guy says, oh, well, that person's a drug user or a drug pusher, and the cops come and, oh, well, you resisted and you're dead. All because you pissed off some guy down the street. I mean, that has to happen. Of course it happens. You go on TV and tell people, hey, you think they're selling drugs, just go ahead and kill them. It's going to, or at least, very least, call the cops. The cops will kill them for you. Creates problems. And it's creating problems in the Philippines. Thanks, everybody, for checking out the show. Another episode of Cannabis News in the Books. Find us on YouTube, Vimeo, Apple Podcasts. Search the Marijuana Times on all of those platforms and subscribe. Of course, click the video tab at marijuanatimes.org. Thank you to Natureside. No organic, all natural pesticides. nature-side.com. Keep liking, sharing, commenting on the videos, helping us spread the word. Thanks for checking out Cannabis News, and we'll see you next time.